Welcome everyone to Spore War After the War, our analysis and retrospective series following the episodes of the Spore War Actual Play series featuring Pathfinder 2nd Edition being hosted on Dungeon Scrawlers that we are bringing to you every week. This is our chance to review the game, talk about the episode that just happened, talk about what we liked, what we want to know more about, and maybe pull back the curtain and reveal a little bit about actual play production for the audience, you, and also to reflect for ourselves what we thought went well and what we could do better next time. My name is Jason Collins. I am a freelance comic book writer, tabletop role-playing game designer, actual play producer and streamer, and I am the producer and editor for the Spore War series here on Dungeon Scrawlers, and I'm very proud to do so and to be in support of this amazing cast and team. And I'm also very proud to introduce the Gamerunner for Spore War, Seneschal.
Hi, glad to be here. Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'm not going to talk. You just had an amazing episode. I want you to talk and tell us what you think about what just happened and what your takeaways are.
I can't tell if I had an amazing episode. All I can tell is I had a great time. And, I don't want to dwell on anything that were hiccups. I think the players really shone in this one. This was a bridge episode between Prelude 1 and Prelude 2. And we wanted to sort of highlight, the options to do sort of downtime activities and to cover the time gap between level 3 and level 5 and the skipped over adventures that they've had as a group. And I think that went pretty well in the sense that with downtime activities, some players really want to get into that and some don't. And so leaving it open for them to do as little or as much as they wanted to do, that I think went all right. Where things really got engaged was when they were doing the research that each of their characters were interested in and leaving me as the GM lots of fuel for future engagement with those discoveries. Really, they engaged with the NPC patrons I'd created in ways that went beyond what I could have hoped. In the ones they hate, they now really, really hate. And the ones they appreciate, they're forging deeper connections with. That is sort of what I hoped would happen, but it went way better than expected, mostly because of how much they learned. And the key moment that for me was the best moment of the campaign so far, or the preludes, which was Banda breaking in to a noble's house to get some dirt on them at Briala's request. And the fact that it started off with a semblance of a plan and some good preparation in the form of disguises, and immediately went sideways with a natural 1 on the deception roll to get past the very first guard, and that yet she went through with it anyways, charged in, used her skills, used some real tactical intelligence, and got what she needed in a way that I thought was really funny. But one of the shining moments was the player dealing with adversity. And the other shining moment was the other players riffing on the side in the pub about how this is no problem. She's got this. It'll be a cinch while she's running afoul of misadventures as she goes. That was great. I love that. Sorry, I keep forgetting that Banda's a male ranger. Absolutely fantastic. I loved it. But the rest of the episode, there was a lot of sort of setting the tone and the what green gold is like to set up for future, because they're going to be here right through the Spore War campaign. I didn't want them to be learning about green gold and the details that are set out in book 1, waiting until book 1 to do that. I wanted to get an advanced start on that, and a little bit of it I did off screen, just some of the boring stuff, and then tried to make it interesting on screen as best we could. That's my take on the episode. I really enjoyed it, though. what were your observations, Jason?
So let's talk about a few of the things you just mentioned, because there were several really, really interesting things that were fun. And when I asked you, at the beginning I said I wanted you to talk, because I didn't want to talk about what's happening, because I said you had a great episode and you said you didn't know, but you said you had fun. That, of course, as we know, is one of the key indicators for you. Yes, you're doing this for the players, you're doing this for the audience. The goal is to entertain a bunch of other people and have fun. But damn it, if you're having fun, then that was a good session for you as well. And that's half the battle in terms of just putting in the time and energy to do these actual plays and to still enjoy it in the process as well. It wasn't just that it was like a half plan; it was a hasty plan. It was Briella coming to Banda and simply saying, I want you to steal this for me, or I want you to go get this for me. I want you to get this information for me, as if it was just a walk in the park for Banda. And I kind of liked how Gwen was playing it as Briella, assuming that Banda is this super talented ranger who seemingly can do anything. You can do this as well. And so that was the premise of that. And a quick disguise and a quick, I've got a uniform I've stashed away. You'll be fine. And maybe they would have been right. But as we talked about on the last After the War episode, right, we talked about how the dice helped tell the story. And the dice said, no, tonight, this is the story. This is the story we're going to tell. And that was fantastic, because I could sense that was not obviously where you thought things were going to go. And in true Gamerunner fashion, you had to improv and ad lib right in the moment and decide, okay, how does this go? And you incorporated very, very well, I thought, the sort of the premise or that philosophy of yes and, right? So as a game runner, player gives you something, you say yes and, rather than saying no right away. And you even gave Lex, the player, the opportunity to consider the ramifications of their choice before proceeding with the next course of action in response to that critical failure on the disguise or the deception check to do that. And then Lex, the player, bless their heart, just leaned into it all the way. Said, "We're doing this now. This is what's going to happen." Yeah. But you then had to improv the rest of that. And
well, I didn't expect. I didn't expect them to do anything about breaking in. Like, the whole thing was unexpected. Yeah. But the fact that it went the way that it did was just unexpected event after unexpected event. Sorry to interrupt.
No. It's totally fine. And the only thing I wanted to say about that, I mean, the scene speaks for itself. And hopefully, if people are watching this episode of After the War, they hopefully have just watched Prelude 2 Part 1 and actually had a chance to see it for themselves. Or they can go back and watch it after this if they're just tuning into After the War to see us old farts chat and hang out for a few minutes. What I liked that you did, and what I hope that maybe newer game masters would take away as a best practice, was you put a bit of pressure on Lex as the player. Quick decisions, go with your instinct. Do you go left? Do you go right? Do you go up? Do you go down? Not a lot of time to think it through or to overly plot. You're being pursued. You're being hunted. You're somewhere where you shouldn't be. You don't have time to think about this. You're going to have to live with the consequences of the next choice you make. Do you open this door, or do you keep going down the hallway? What's it going to be? I liked that, because that was really appropriate, and that was something that I thought, that's a great example for anybody watching about how you can yes and lean into what the player's choice was, not say no, not make it impossible to succeed, but put a bit of pressure on them to make choices that then creatively and collaboratively, as we've talked about, you see what happens next.
Yeah, thanks for commenting on that. And I have to say that I didn't think that through in the moment. That's just based on experience as a game runner over decades. But it is, I think, subconsciously something that I do, in that give them lots of time to plan beforehand. Don't put them in a situation where they have to launch into a dangerous situation without making their plans. And sometimes leave on a cliffhanger where they have the entire week to think about the plan, so you don't have to take up game time. But once they're in it, if it is, if events are unfolding, they're outside of their control. Yeah, I like to say, you don't have that kind of time to think about it. Quick decisions. Where are you going? Where are you doing?
And Gwen's instinct to retroactively say, "Oh, could I be there to help? Because that didn't go well." No, that you set this plan in motion. You said, "Banda, you got this," and you sent Banda out into the world to go do this task for you. And you're at the tavern with the rest of the crew having an ale, thinking that, "Oh, what drink do we buy for Banda to toast their success when they return?"
Worked out way better that way.
Yes,
I think everyone would agree. And the fact that it went well is not a problem, right? It is, as you said, give them the opportunity to succeed and the opportunity to fail, and failure should not be the end of the game.
Yes.
It can be a setback, or it can be a comedic moment, or it can be anything else. It doesn't have to be you're dead. That's not great storytelling. Not every situation is a life or death situation, um, but it should feel real that they have the possibility to prevail in spite of it, or in the face of adversity, and also that they might fail and have an embarrassing moment that also forms part of their character's history. And this just worked out perfectly in that way. It was I loved it. I loved the whole thing.
I was worried that it was going to hijack the episode for you and kind of like go an extended piece, but you kept it brisk, you kept it fast, kept the tension up, allowed Banda to find the objective and then make a resolution to how they would successfully get away with it, but then still able to get back in because this episode had we were down one player, of course. Stephen Merlino couldn't join us for this episode. We miss Stephen very much. We look forward to seeing him next week, but in doing so you were able to use this episode to do a lot more focus on the downtime activity, which is not just a storytelling tool but a key mechanic of Pathfinder Second Edition, to allow the player characters to set their own plans in motion and to build relationships and networks and resource gathering and skill building and all of the various interests that they might have. But as you so aptly just put it, right, to tie it, and this is one of the things I wanted to talk about after this, was you also tied it into them really setting down roots in Green Gold, which you are doing in the preludes before even the start of the Spore War Adventure Path begins, because you know how much deeper that connection will be by the time we start the adventure path, how much richer those connections will be, and the story will just benefit from that because they'll have much more attachment to not only their surroundings, the inhabitants of those surroundings. And you and I talked about an episode or two ago and after the war about how we used that to great effect when we ran the Age of Ashes adventure path for our home table, and the NPCs in the various locations that you go to as part of that series, and the locations you go to and the NPCs that have those locations, some of them being key NPCs that have speaking parts, so to speak, where you actually interact with them. They weren't just one and done; they became rich recurring characters in our home table story, and now you're setting those early steps to do the same with this one.
Yeah, and I've read the first Spore War um, book, and I really love the content. But if I have one early complaint, it's not a complaint, but a thing I would do differently. It's that it doesn't. It's a one size fit all start, so that you can wedge that 11 to 20 adventure in a modular way with any other lead up to level 11 or none at all. And so it starts in an action sequence defending Green Gold. I won't go into more detail than that, without firm roots in Green Gold.
Yeah.
I think this is a better way to lead into the campaign for a number of reasons, but the biggest one is these people will have a motivation to protect the residents of
Yes.
Green
Yes.
built in. They'll have personal ties to Green Gold, and I tried to build up the attachment to the beauty of Kionin. There's lots of things that having a prelude or a series of preludes is helpful for. And you can do that with pre-published stuff. I chose to do it with some preludes just to get quickly to level 11 and get into the action. But I'm really happy with the way that's unfolding. The players are responsive to the lead I'm taking. But to go to your earlier point, in terms of derailing the content I had planned, I never plan for filling more than half of a game session with the content I have planned because the players will always find adventure. And as much as I might have tried to de-emphasize or avoid a single character going off on their own and doing something, the players made that easy by having their side discussion, and it just worked really, really well in this instance. Part of the reason I didn't want to rush the content either is because the next series of events is going to be tactical, and that's one of Steven's preferred aspects of the game, and I didn't want to exclude him from that. And the players were happy to have a somewhat shorter, somewhat lighter session where we deal with background. And I actually think that part, you don't want to always be spending time talking about what they're doing, with their housing situation, but I think it worked out all right.
Yeah. it really did, and it was a good segue from the Prelude 1, which established their connection to each other, and this one sort of singular event that they all participated in that sort of started that bond. And what are we talking about, the strength of the players at the table, right? You started this session, the Prelude 2, by reminding them that there's been a time jump. You've continued to work together for the benefit of all. You've all seen benefits in having done so, and it was kind of an assumptive close that this is already what's been happening. And of course, none of the players, balked at that for a second. They have buy-in. They know that they're here to tell the story together. But they've all created characters who have very malleable personalities that very much go with the flow and would immediately seek out those beneficial relationships that help them achieve what they're after. But they also seem to like each other in terms of the characters liking each other and spending time. And genuinely, one of my favorite little moments was the segue to the tavern as they're talking about what drinks to enjoy to celebrate their moment, and J. Dior simply looking at Brielle and saying, "You sent him where? Alone?"
That was a good moment.
It was really great, right? And so just Mr. Parr leaning into that concern that that's not as cut and dry as you think it's going to be, and having a bit of wisdom there as well, right?
The nice thing about that that brings to light too is, I think, another compliment to the cast of players that we've got is they're all at the same level in terms of engagement. There's nobody who's dominating or underwhelming. They're all at that level. So while Banda is on this hair-raising adventure, I think it was Briala who started the conversation with the others as a side conversation. J. Dior's beautiful reaction, and Varen coming in and closing that off, and like they all played their part in that dramatic back and forth between the conversation in the pub and the hair-raising adventure. It was they're great players.
Yes. And what you're going to find, of course, is this is your inaugural run as an actual play game runner. But this was something that I discovered as I did my first couple of APs as well, was that you're going to find different episodes and just naturally will gravitate towards one or two of the characters, simply because the circumstances will be geared toward their skill sets, or they'll just be specific scenes that you more or less envision that they would take the lead on, or they choose to take the lead on. Therefore, now they're front and center for this interaction that's going to take place. But it's going to give everyone a chance to shine. It's going to give everyone else a chance to recognize, this isn't my moment. I'm going to be in the background. I may not be participating as much in the next little bit. But it's still going to be fantastic, and I'm going to be here for it. But you'll be able to recognize those moments, and you'll be able to recognize, oh, this character's had a lot of sort of main character time in the last episode or two. I'm going to make sure that I swing this around and bring in some of the other characters to it. You get to learn your instinct around that and kind of just develop that naturally as you look ahead to what's going to happen in the next episode. You're like, okay, this will be a good scene for this person to have a moment, and or I'll specifically have this NPC choose this player character to talk to ensure that person's getting some screen time as well.
Yeah, I look forward to that. This has been a lot of fun, and I've enjoyed these post sessions as well. I'm really excited to see where this goes. I'm really excited to get into the actual AP material as well. There's a bit of complexity there in terms of the NPCs and their interrelation. So I'm going to have to be careful about that. There's a high degree of familiarity. When you're preparing your own stuff, it's of course easier because you prepared it. You know it inherently.
Yes.
It's very easy to miss something in AP if you're not careful in pre-reading it.
And I think that obviously we'll have one more episode of Prelude 2. You had a minor flub at the beginning where you said that you're level 8, but of course this is supposed to be level 5.
You may have caught me double checking halfway through, like, did I ever go to 8 or 5? Yeah, that's true. You can fix that. You fix that in post.
Right? It's all in post. Yeah. Exactly right. It's a completely different voice comes over and just says 5.
Yeah.
But I think your goal of setting up these preludes and having 1 to 2 episodes per prelude, I think the level 8 prelude, even after we get through the second part 2 of Prelude 2 at level 5, the level 8 one, because we know there's a bit of a power curve jump there. That one's going to be really important because I haven't read all of the Adventure Path as you have. I've read the beginning part. I know that major scene in Green Gold that you're referring to, and it is dangerous. And so the player characters will need to be ready for the fact that the lethality is going to scale up a little bit, because you're gradually getting them into it. But the Adventure Path says you're level 11, you're ready for this. Here you go. And so that's my hope, is that they lean into that as well. I mean, we know, as we said, Steven really enjoys the tactical play. He's really looking to build his character to have some tactical capabilities that he's going to really enjoy playing in the game. But the rest will need to make sure that they have a bit of a balance between the social and then the survival skills as well.
Yes. Which means you're right in the sense that I will have to up the lethality in, because I plan to have a combat encounter in each of the preludes, just one for time. The one at level 8, I will have to make dangerous.
I think so. I think that this is where, as a game master, you're looking ahead to what's coming, and sometimes you're like, the players have just everybody's having a good time, everybody's having fun. It's wonderful, and there's plenty of actual plays that lethal or deadly combat is not a huge part of their game plan, or not something that they maybe enjoy as much or lean into, or they simply are going for the social way more often, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But knowing how adventure paths are written, they're written with a balance of all of those things in place, and combat is absolutely part of the game. Combat is absolutely part of the story. Combat is absolutely part of this adventure path series, and dangerous combat at that. And so players there's the risk that if you're not introducing that to them often enough, players get a bit too casual and they forget. And at off camera at the end of our session tonight, I reminded everybody to not hold on to those resources, to make sure that they use the resources they've gained at this point to prepare their characters for the next couple of seasons.
That was a good thought. I appreciate you saying it too. It is, we've encountered that with the Hell's Vengeance AP, where time and time again we're like, how would any inexperienced group of players survive this? And I can't think of a way for some of those combats, at least one per book, where it's like that.
Yep.
That was rough for us, and we played pretty much optimized characters, and we played well, and we barely made it through. Some of the AP can be lethal.
Absolutely. And that's, you talk about the admiring well written adventure paths for that reason, and the well written ones don't persecute the players, and they don't coddle them. They just simply present a situation, and partially as game master, but then partially as players, they need to come to the table prepared, and they need to be thinking about, what did we just survive last time? What have we already encountered? And knowing that the stakes will continue to be high, have I made all the right choices with my advancement, all the right choices with my resource spending that I've done, and do I have a balance of things that I've invested in for my character, not just the things that are most fun for me or that I enjoy the most in the game.
Yeah, and we've had some conversations before the cameras start rolling about things people enjoy in terms of magic items and stuff that are camp items, like the ones that make portable shelters and stuff like this.
That's right.
And that's all very cool. But you don't want to spend your money on that if it means you die in the next combat encounter. So
that's right.
Yeah, players marshaling resources and understanding the lethality of the AP is going to be important. And so I accept what you're saying, and I absolutely agree. I had not thought of that, but I need to make sure that these are cautionary tales as well as formative ones.
For sure. But there was an interesting development in that you introduced a reminder of them that you need to. What are you going to call yourselves? You're now an adventuring group, which is a huge part of a player character life. In Golarion, many player characters become parts of adventuring groups, and you can just have your friends or your companions or shared interests or shared enemies that you've banded together to go off to. But often it can be, you want to earn coin and build reputation and maybe achieve a better status of life. And an adventuring party is a way to do that, but you can't do that if no one knows who you are, because then they can't hire you and they can't know that this is the group that I want to have. And you suggested, hey, what are you going to call yourselves? And there was they had a little bit of banter in this episode back and forth about what name they might call themselves. But what I liked about that is you introduced that as part of that time jump, and as part of that, you started out together, you've chosen to stay together, that assumptive close, that's just what's happened now. But now you're recognizing that Green Gold, this cosmopolitan city, which is attracting people from outside of Keonan, it's also attracting adventurers. And Lex as Banda had even made comment at one point about perhaps wanting to use a little bit of their downtime to learn a little bit more about Pathfinders and the Pathfinder Society.
What I did forget to get back to her on that too.
So that's okay. That's just something that can certainly come up as part of the wrap up for next session, or as part of level 8, in terms of whatever culmination happens at the end of Prelude to Part 2. And whatever name they've chosen for those, there was a couple ones, so I won't say for sure which one they chose. But then that reputation of that group might then attract the attention of the Pathfinders, or at least give Banda the opportunity to meet a Pathfinder or members of the Pathfinder Society. Just by virtue of now they're going to be level 8 by the time Prelude 3 starts, they'll have a reputation. They'll certainly be known within Green Gold, whether it's notoriety or fame. And of course, that brings with it new encounters and new opportunities.
Yeah, and to your point, I like to do two things at some point in every campaign to help the characters meld better. One is to raise the question of the name of the group, and the other is to either encourage them or to establish or give them a base of operations that is valuable in some way. And for one thing, it can be a money sink. Age of Ashes has that great citadel that the players can develop if they choose. There is a great. We did a wonderful maritime campaign that was homebrewed, and where the ship was the base was the money. It's a money sink, and it's also just it almost becomes a non-player character or ally in its own in its own right. But that is something that I like to do as well, because it grounds the party and it gives them something to come back to and something to defend. It introduces other plot points that you can utilize if it's under threat or what have you. So that's something that I wanted to establish in the lead up to this, and to have them have a presence in Green Gold. So a little house that can grow and that they can furnish. They can get as much into that as they like, but it's up to the players to do. But I like to give them the opportunity.
And of course, it also becomes a plot point that you can use in the future, where they can receive visitors. People can track them down there because they get to be known and they know that they're in town, and that's part of that other half of that cautionary tale. Not just from a tactical standpoint and making sure your character's combat ready, but also if you're flaunting your skills and perhaps stepping over a couple of people on your way to fame and fortune, people find out where you live, and then that can come back to your front door as well.
Absolutely, which is fun.
Yes,
for the GM.
Yes, that's right. We're going to do Prelude 2 Part 2 next week. Hopefully we will have Stephen back with us. You've already set up and warned them that there's going to be a bit of a tactical encounter as part of that episode. But it's also going to be level 5, and they've got a few more abilities and things under their belts now that they are starting to experiment with and so forth. And I can't remember, there was something that you said at the end of this episode that you were reminding them about this scene coming up, or what follows this scene. Was there something you were telling them about? Like, was it reputational or something else that was going to come of this?
I'm not sure what you mean. Sorry.
It's okay. During our wrap-up conversation, we were talking about to be ready for the scene for next week. That we would all be in the tea house in that meeting room. But I thought there was something that was going to lead or follow to that. But maybe it was just more about the tactical part of it that I was thinking of. But I was thinking, I thought it was tied to the formation of the group as a adventuring group.
I think what they're going to be doing is deciding how they want to approach this.
That's what it was. Yes.
That they get to, I wanted to make sure that they understood that this is not it's not a computer role-playing game where the encounter triggers in a particular way and that's where you start. They get to decide how to face this challenge. They have a bare amount of information about what they're being asked to do. They're being asked to help with a problem. How much curiosity they have about investigating before they do something, and how much they just want to rush in and deal with the situation, how they want to deal with it, whether they want to make it an aggressive act or a defensive act, all of that is totally up to them. It makes, for me as a GM, first of all, it gives them all the agency, and secondly, for them, uh, they own the approach, and I don't have to prepare as much if I have to improv it. I sometimes like to do forced improv on the GM side, in sense that they tell me how they want to approach this, and I'm going to determine on the fly how that factors into things they're not aware of, or they might have researched or might have found out. I think that'll be a lot of fun.
One thing that this episode, Prelude 2 Part 1, was able to showcase, which I thought you did a really good job of reminding them of, and they were able to use to good advantage, was recall knowledge, which is a key mechanic in Pathfinder 2nd Edition too. How does your character know about what it is they're researching? One of the great things that Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and we're using the remastered series, the core series, of course, was that they allowed the recall knowledge to not just be lore-based, not just be intelligence-based. It can be based on other skills that you have, based on the topic that you're researching or wanting to know more about. But what you're talking about is, will they remember, or will they consciously choose to recall knowledge, to do some investigation, to think about, okay, what can I learn about this situation or these individuals before we enact on it? And what it reminded me of is I was glad to see that it was happening in this episode, and I hope that players catch on to that and will remember that going forward. You may need to prod them from time to time, depending on what it is. Or again, to preempt some of that lethality that could come their way if they don't remember to do that. But what it reminded me of was when you and I were co-running Age of Ashes at our home table and switching off, and we would go onto the Paizo forums and we would look ahead and read about what the next adventure that we were due to run, how other groups had run it, because we were a couple years out from when it was published that we were getting around to running it again. And it was remarkable the number of stories where they had game masters posting about their groups, simply saying they weren't curious, they didn't ask any questions, they didn't prepare, they didn't stockpile any resources in preparation, and they went in without healing or resting or researching, and they got wiped. And
Yes.
there was no forgiveness and no do-overs in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not sure, like, I know that we're starting off next time with them asking questions of the NPC they're assisting, in terms of how they want this done and what their options are and what's going on. That's going to be a fun little dialogue. I'm not going to prompt them, and I don't know. We're going to go straight into their planning. I'm going to ask them what they're doing, what's next.
That's right.
I'm not going to prompt them to do recall knowledge. We've already gone through that this session to lay the groundwork for this. How much research they do. Now, they may go stealth mode and try and infiltrate this organization. They may try to just attack this organization. They may try to defend when the next time that,
Yeah.
there's going to be lots of different options. They may do some combination of those, but I'm not going to prompt them this time.
One thing
At least it's not my intention not to.
No.
We'll see how they do.
I agree, because sometimes the PCs have to make their own bed and lie in it, and we find out what happens. I'm curious because whether this was just my interpretation. I was reading it more into the scene than there was, but it felt a little bit as it was almost more the players talking to each other than the player characters, because we kind of ended on that moment right before that conversation begins with the NPC. So they haven't done it, but more the players talking. But it felt like it was almost drifting into a bit of a morality conversation about what are we going to be asked to do, and then our second part, are we prepared to do that, or how far are we prepared to go? And I was really curious about that, and I don't know if that tone will still be there afterwards, depending on what they're asked to do. But I thought that was really interesting, because part of this episode was about, are you forming an adventuring group? What do you call yourselves? What's going to be your reputation? How do they know you? But then that morality play in terms of, what does this adventuring group, what are the first few things it gets known for having done, if it's not secretive and actually word gets out afterwards that you were involved in this, or you choose to use it as part of your calling card or your resume about how you can be hired for other things in the future. But it's something that we explore at our home table. So this is, I think, why I'm keyed in on this, and I'm looking for it all the time. At our home table, we've leaned into the morality play a lot as we've gone through Age of Ashes and even some of the in between scenes, because all of our characters at the home table for that adventure series have gone through a bit of an arc in terms of their own morality, their own line in the sand in terms of what actions they will or won't take. And sometimes that line gets obliterated and it's gone, and sometimes that line gets redrawn and it's not in the same place that it was before. But I'll be curious if that comes into this at all, because again, sometimes it's like they're having fun, they're sharing laughs, it's a good time. We want that. You always want your game table to be fun and to be enjoyable. Everybody has a reason to show up. But will they slow down just a moment to say, is this a line in the sand that my character would cross?
Absolutely. I'm excited to see how that plays out. And it comes into the question of how GMs can use the break between weekly sessions. Because ending off with this is the task you're going to be facing and giving them a week to percolate on that can be harmful or helpful depending on the players. And what they've got going on in their regular lives and whether they have time to think about it. Because sometimes a week is enough to forget everything you intended to do.
That's right.
And be at a loss. And sometimes a week they come back with better ideas than they might have had if they'd had to charge right into it.
That's right.
So I try as a GM to definitely use the end of the session to either, if I can, if it works, lead into what's going to happen next, give them a hint of what's going to happen next. Unless it's obvious, and give them that chance to think about it so the players have a chance to be smarter than they would be if they had to make a snap decision.
Absolutely.
Anyways, we'll see how they go. And of course, Stephen was not here this week. A really unfortunate technical difficulty issue. But I think he'll have it resolved by next week. And we have the raw recording, so we can send him the raw recording so he can actually brief on what's happened.
Totally.
And have the same opportunity as the rest of the players to make a plan.
Totally. And Toad's got a very distinct voice. Toad has a very distinct personality. Toad has a very distinct line in the sand, I think, that Stephen has set for that character. And so it'll be very interesting to see if his presence back at the table, so to speak, changes that tone a little bit and influences things.
Yeah, good point. That's pretty good. I like these debriefs too because it makes me think.
That's okay. That's why we do it for you. We do it for us, right? And our players, if they choose to watch these in the future, they get to see what we were thinking about and what some of our initial takeaways are. But as we talked about, the After the War series is just a way for us to both analyze and reflect on the episodes that have just followed, but also the chance to share that with the audience and for people that are interested in both, role playing games as a hobby, maybe a bit of game design, but whether you're an amateur writer or whether you're just wanting to design better or different home games for your home table, and even just insight into how to take all those skills that we have as role players for some of us for years, but then translate to that a really specific medium like the actual play.
It's good stuff, Jason.
I'm glad. I'm glad that you agreed to sign on, and I'm glad that we have such a great table because it's got some amazing personalities, and I think the audience, those that are choosing to join us each week, will connect and probably have their favorites pretty quickly. So
yeah, but there's no duds. I keep coming back to that. There's no duds. They're all in it.
Any parting thoughts before we wrap up this episode of After the War?
No, that was great. Thank you. I appreciate your help on these, and these debriefs are really helpful too. Thanks, Jason.
You're very welcome. One more time, I'm Jason Collins. I'm a freelance comic book writer, tabletop role-playing game designer, actual play producer, and streamer. And I am pleased to be producing and supporting the Spore War Actual Play Pathfinder 2nd Edition series here on Dungeon Scrawlers. We thank you for spending time with us this week. And thank you as well to you, Matt, as the game runner and all of the work that you're putting in there. We hope everybody's enjoying this so far, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Bye-bye.